Hi, and welcome to Strata. My name is Matt Shell, aka Matt Mirafish, and I am going to show you today how to set up Strata, which is my asset from the Unity Asset Store for procedural 2D tilemap generation. I'm going to show you how to set it up from scratch. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video. We also have a shorter video that just gives a quick overview and a quick start. So if you want to start there, you can, but this will give you in-depth, from scratch, step-by-step setup. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with, we have these assets here, these tiles, which are by a pixel artist called Arachne. It's called Mini Rogue. There's her name and site. She posted them online as Creative Commons, so thank you to her for that. She's a great artist. Check her out. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new palette. And so we're going to, in our tile palette window, we're going to choose Create New Palette, and we're going to call it Mini Rogue Demo Palette, and hit Create. And I'm going to add one tile that comes with Strata that is not in this map first, which is this black, empty, no collision tile. This is a black tile that represents empty space that's set up for you by default. And we'll see why we want to use that in a second. Then I'm going to grab my actual tiles with art. Now, I'm not going to grab all of these. Let's grab about half of them because some of them are multi-tile monsters that we're not going to work with today. But we're just going to grab the first like 128 or so. We're probably not even going to use all of these. And we'll create them in the tile folder here. So, okay, so we've got our tiles, and let's make this palette a little bit bigger. And so these are the tiles that we're going to use to draw our level. And so what we can do now is we are going to create a new room template and a new board library. So the board library is a data collection that Strata uses to keep track of all of our tiles, how we write them and read them from disk, and how we associate them with our map data. So let's go ahead and select the Strata Scriptable Objects folder, and we're going to do Create New Profile and Supporting Files. So this is going to create a new profile, library, a bunch of room lists, and also a tilemap instantiator. And we'll learn more about what those are later on, but for now we can just get started. So we're going to go ahead and we've got those set up, and then we're going to go ahead and create a new room template. So a room template is going to correspond, and let's call this Mini Rogue North, South, East, West 1. And North, South, East, West are going to be the directions that we have exits in. And so now we are just going to grab our empty tile that we added. And I'm actually just going to, just so I don't make a mistake, I'm going to go into edit mode and delete this black tile there so I don't have two black tiles. And I'm going to select my empty tile. Now it's already written here, but just for kind of completeness sake, I'm going to write it in. This red square represents the current shape of our loaded room template. So our room template is 10 by 10. It could be 10 by 14, let's say, if we wanted it to. And it'll show you kind of the outline of the room that you're editing. So right now we've got an empty 10 by 10 room. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and let's actually, whoops, what did I do there? I'm still editing the tile map. Okay, let's go ahead and grab this, and I'm just going to draw walls, take my empty tile, create some empty space within it, and then we're going to add exits to the north, south, east, and west. And so I'm just using the regular Unity tilemap tools to author this, and then when we save it, we're going to save it as a bunch of ASCII characters so that we can reload it and process it and work with it. So now I've got my room loaded, I've input my data into the tilemap, and I'm going to go ahead and click Save. I'm going to see a message saying success. It was written to the room template. And now I'm going to go ahead and add it to my enter from north, east, south, and west lists. So these are these room lists that we created, and we can, I think I did that one twice. Let's get rid of that. I did south twice. these are these room lists that we created. So these are collections. They're just lists, scriptable objects with lists of rooms. And basically, we're going to use these to pick random rooms from later. So now we've created that one room and added it. Let's just create a couple more rooms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, and I'm going to choose Duplicate Loaded Room. And you can also just do Control-D, load it in. And then let's just make an edit to this just to make it kind of superficially different. Let's just do a little bit of this and maybe a little bit of this kind of stuff, just whatever. And save that one. And this time I'll just do Control-D for no reason and drop it in. And the next one will be, we'll cut out some of that. Sure. Save room. Okay, so now we have 3 variations. Oh, and I forgot to add these to the list. So let's add this. This is going to be 2 is going to go in all my lists as well. We're going to add. And then 3. We're going to add. Okay, so now we've got those in our lists. And also, when we're clicking add, it's adding it to the list, and it's also setting the flags on it that it opens to the north, south, east, and west. All right, so now let's create some rooms that don't open in every direction. Let's take 3 here, and we're going to make this, let's just make this north and west. We'll call it 1. And let's just close off some of these directions. This is, sorry, not north and west. Let's do north and south. Let's keep it simple for now. We can do north and west, but let's just do north, south, 1. And we'll just close these. We want to make sure we're drawing inside the outline so it doesn't get garbled. And let's just, whatever. Let's just make it look a little different so it's kind of visibly recognizable. Okay. And make sure that it's loaded before we save it, and then hit save. And then maybe we'll make one additional copy of that. Load it, and why don't we just make this one sort of mostly empty with one little thing there. Save. And this is going to get added to north and south, and north, south 1 is going to get added to north and south. And then let's make some east-wests. So the idea here is that we can leverage Unity's Tilemap tools to author pieces of content that we can then assemble procedurally. So we'll just do that. And east-west, we'll save that. And then let's just make one more east-west. And load it. And let's just do like that. Not the most amazing dungeon, but that's okay. East-west 2 is loaded. Save it. Okay. So now we've got a bunch of rooms that we can spawn that we've authored, right? And of course, we could make these look really pretty and do all kinds of stuff to them, put monsters in them and so on if we wanted to. But for now, we're just going to have empty rooms. So the next thing that we want to do is in our board generator. So the board generator is a component that was automatically attached to the tile map. And notice that the tile map, so the tile map should be auto-generated. I think I actually had it in the scene when I started, but the tile map will be auto-generated if you don't have one. Otherwise, it'll select the one that you have. It's probably not a good idea to have multiple tile maps in here when authoring because it just looks for the first one that it finds. So now that we have our data, right, we are going to make sure that our board generation profile is loaded in the board generator. And we're going to double click the profile to open it. So we have our seed value, which is my Twitter handle. We have the horizontal and vertical size, which is 100, and the board library, which was created when we started, right? So if we look at the board library, we can see that it's got our black empty tile, and it's also got a entry for our tile 2, which is this one, right? So it's automatically added an entry for it, and it's going to store it under the character M. You can specify these as you want. Then you just need to recreate your rooms if you change the characters because it won't correspond. And the idea there, right, is that we're generating these arrays of character data. So you could very easily serialize it to JSON if you wanted to, process it in different ways, right? I wanted to keep it as a kind of an easy format to work with. So it's just ASCII characters. And obviously a throwback to the kind of traditional history of roguelikes. Okay, so now we've got our room lists already ordered, and we're using the instantiation technique tilemap, meaning what we're going to spawn from this, we're going to spawn back to a tilemap. You could actually spawn something else with this data, right? I'll show you later on. I have an example of spawning like a 3D cube world, which you could do as well, right? This is just data that we're authoring. We could use it to do different things with it, but right now we're just going to spawn it back to a tilemap. Okay, so let's go back to our profile. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add a generator, right? So generators in Strata are the things that actually do the procedural generation, and we can have multiple of them, right? Let's start with one. We're going to go click on our scriptable objects folder, hit create, go to the Strata menu, choose generators, and we have a bunch of different generators that we can use here. Let's start really simple. We are going to start with what I call a room chain. And so we'll call this mini rogue demo room chain, and we're going to add it to our board generation profile. So we're just going to drag it into the array of generators, right? Or it's a list actually. And then we could double click to edit it. So what we want to do here is we want to choose the options for the generator. So we're going to say, yeah, we are going to overwrite filled spaces, right? Meaning if there was already something under here, we're going to carve it out to create our rooms. This does generate empty space, right? It generates internal empty space. The room size is 10 by 10. That matches our room size in our room template. The maximum rooms on the path will be 20, and the minimum will be 10. So if it isn't able to create 10 rooms, it'll throw it out and try again. The start location, our grid is 100 by 100. So let's set the start location to be the center of the grid. It'll be 50 by 50. You could have a bunch of random start locations as well. We'll just use one for now. And then the start room template, let's use our north, south, east, west 1. And again, you could have a list of random options to choose from here, but I'm just going to use one. The random fill rooms we'll get to in a moment. We're not going to randomly fill yet because I just want to show you the generator working in its basic sense first. Okay, so this is now set up to use. So now if we hit play, we want to make sure that our board generator is set to build on start. Okay, so it has generated, and let's just go ahead and get our empty tile and make it blacker. In this case, having it black makes sense. We'll make it all the way opaque. There we go. So you can also, you can press you can press 0 in the game view to regenerate. That's only in editor mode. So what we can see here, right, is we've generated a chain of rooms that are all interlinked. And if we, in the hierarchy, expand, this is optional. I'm creating these holder objects. These actually have nothing to do with the grid. They're just there so you can debug. So room 0 is here, right? So basically this is good when you're authoring your algorithm or your setup to make sure that you have connectivity between all the rooms, right? That you're actually creating a traversable path. So we have room 0 is there. Okay, then we go west, north, east, 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 north, west. What happened? I can't move up. And then we go up. So what, let's see, okay, there's a little bit of an issue, right? We went from north, south. So let's just double check our north, south room. That's north, south 1. Yeah, so, okay, because I forgot to untick. So this does not open to the east and west. So let's just double check that. All right. And then let's just make, yeah, east, west. So you can do this manually. I'm trying to automate this process and make it easier, but it's not perfect yet. As you can see, east-west is good. So these are scriptable objects, so you can edit them in play mode. North-south, that's all good. North-south, north-south, east-west, east. No, that's wrong. So human error. So as you can see, switch to our transform tool. So as you can see, right, we're generating, let's just check. Yeah, that's valid, 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 down, 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 up, back. Yeah, okay, so we're generating valid chains of rooms here. So that's pretty cool, right? That is a good start. Definitely could be an appropriate roguelike game right there, right? But there's more that we can do. And this is kind of where Strata, in my opinion, is cool, because we can do layers of procedural generation. So what we're going to do now is we'll go back to our profile, and let's take out or we'll just replace it actually. Let's replace this first layer of generation. We're going to go to Create, Strata, Generators, and we're going to create a cellular automata generator. So, and we'll call this Mini Rogue Demo Cellular. And what we want to do is this will overwrite filled spaces. We'll put this at the start and have it just write over everything. It does generate empty space. The character for the fill, we want to make sure matches our, we want to check our board library to make sure that we get the right, we want to fill with walls, which in this case are M, and then empty space is 0. So let's go back to cellular. And as this gets more refined, I'm going to automate more and more of this, but for now, there's a couple manual steps. Okay, and then the random fill percent, we're going to put it, let's put it at like 51. Okay, and then we're going to put it in the first slot here instead of the room chain to start. So, not you. Drop that in there. Okay, so as you can see, we're generating these kind of procedural cave systems, which is pretty cool. Organic, more organic shapes than our room chain, right? But what we can do is we can combine these, right? So what I'm going to do is we're going to first lay down the caves, and then I'm going to add another index to my array, or we could just drag in our room chain. We're going to put that into slot 2. And now you can see we can dig out of our cave level this chain of rooms, right? So we can do one layer and then another layer on top of it. And so this, in my opinion, is where things start to get kind of fun. So let's go ahead, let's tweak the cellular automata. What a word to say. Let's tweak it so it generates a little less filled space, so there's some empty space as well. So that's kind of cool. It's like we have a building that carves into the caves. We get some spaces where they intersect here. The open space connects. The player could go outside, right? Go out of this kind of long building here, out into the cave, right? Which I think is kind of neat. Let's add another layer or two to this. Let's go ahead and add in the profile, we will create strata generators. Let's create a random scatterer. So this will be, let's do scatter grass. And what I'm going to do is just, let's clear this, clear and draw empty 10 by 10. And then this is just going to be to add the grass to the room library. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw some in. And let's just make a new empty. Let's just call this grass scratch. Yeah. And save that. And so that'll add that to the board library. And now we'll get the character for it. which is in the board library. The character for the grass is B. And so in our profile, we'll now add our scatterer. The character to scatter is going to be B. And we'll do it third. So we'll do our other two, and then we'll scatter the grass. Let's tweak the grass. We're not going to overwrite. I'll show you what overwrite looks like just so you can see it. But in the end, we're not going to do it. This does not generate empty space, right? And yeah, we'll scatter 100 instances. So when we enter play mode, if we choose to overwrite, and this is kind of a key feature. This is kind of a key feature of Strata, right? You can overwrite, but you see we get stuff like grass in the middle of the cave walls, right? So not so good. So, depending on what it is, maybe if this was like gold ore deposits or something, you would want that. But in this case, we don't want that. We want it to just write into the empty space because it's grass, right? So we'll tweak it and regenerate. And now we can see that it only fills the empty spaces, right? So let's go ahead. Let's up the density. Let's do maybe 250. There we go. So now we're filling in some grass into our empty areas. Let's add another layer to this just for fun. Let's go ahead and create a scatter room shapes generator. So this will be mini rogue scatter lakes. So let's go ahead and we'll just use our grass scratch palette to just enter or actually, you know what? Let's make a lake. Let's create a new room template, and this will be called lake. And I'll put it in the right folder. And let's draw a lake. Let's get where's our water? It doesn't look very watery. I thought I had a more watery tile than this. Oh yeah, here. Okay, let's make a kind of irregular lake shape here. Now, importantly, right, and let's make this a little bigger. Let's make the lake maybe 15 by 15, right? And we'll draw empty 15 by 15. And I'll just use the square tool to add kind of some lake shape. And then the pen tool to just make some kind of irregularity to it. And maybe we'll have some little like bits that go off it. Does that look like a lake? Maybe we'll have some little sort of pseudo islands in there. There's an island. Maybe there's an island in the middle too. All right. It's not the world's most beautiful lake, but it will do. And we'll save that. And then in scatter lakes, of course, we could have multiples as well. We'll add our lake in the room templates. And then in this case, we're not going to overwrite filled spaces, right? That's important. And we'll scatter 5, sure. Because we want to kind of fit it in with the other stuff that's there. And so let's go back to the board generation profile and let's just drag in. No, not you. Can't click. We're going to add in our lakes. We're going to do it last. Yeah, I think that's good because it'll delete some of the grass, but I think that's okay. And then let's enter play mode. And take a look. Okay, so here you can see, this is kind of cool. We've got these random lake shapes spawning, and you can see, like this I kind of like. Right now we get into these kind of ruin kind of situations where the lake has spawned inside the building, but because it's not overwriting, the walls are intact, but the water has kind of flowed in around it, right? Really, it just wrote in. But in this case, it didn't overwrite the grass, so we probably don't want that. So let's actually modify that. So let's go ahead. I mean, those could be aquatic plants, right? But let's go ahead and just put lakes where the grass is, and then grass where the lakes is. And regenerate. With 0. Okay, there we go. That's cool. Now it's starting to get cool. Yeah, that's kind of neat, right? So now we have these lakes. We could probably make these lakes bigger, actually. That might be cooler. But these lakes spawning in. Okay, so right now everything is quite sort of regular and intact. Another thing I like to do, especially since I tend to like kind of more like ruined looking structures, is just kind of slice it up a little bit. So let's use some tunneling to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a tunneler. So let's go ahead to create Strata generators tunneler, and this will be called Mini Rogue Connector Tunneler. Now this is kind of cool because one of the things that this is for is to ensure connectivity. If you are doing multiple layers and you may have messed up your chain of rooms where you want to have your entrance and your exit, you want to ensure that you actually have created something that isn't just a dead end, right? So we are going to take the connector tunneler, add it in. This is definitely going to overwrite filled spaces. It will, sure, the number of tunnels is 4. The width can be 1 unit, that's fine. We're not going to spawn rooms at the end of tunnels. Well, we could see that in a second. Use random tunnel start position, no, because we want to connect the last strata layer. So what this means is it's actually going to go through all the layers, all the generators, get an empty space from each, and dig a tunnel from a random empty space in the cellular automata to a random empty space in the connected rooms. That should be good. Let's test. All right, so this is a little hard to see with this current layout. So let's go ahead and tweak our automata. And actually, let me do this a little better. So where's my profile? Oh, not this. This is the old stuff. Profile. This is why I have these 2 inspectors here, is I like to lock one. Once I get to this stage, I like to lock one with the profile so that I can reference it easily. Let's go back to the automata. And let's increase the fill amount. Let's increase it like a lot. So it's going to be mostly filled. There we go. Okay. So now, did that work? Looks like it did. Okay, yeah, we can see it working better here. So the tunneler has decided to connect this cave of the automata back to this space on the room chain, right? And it's tunneled through, and then it's also tunneled through here to here to here. Looks like to here. So it's basically digging out random tunnels between the different generation passes so that we can have some connectivity between them. And let's maybe go for like a slightly less on the automata. All right, let's just give us a bigger. That's kind of cool. That connected automatically. Connected here, connected those guys. Connected here, connected here. Yeah, so the tunneling is kind of a cool way to add some connectivity when you have these dense levels, right, with a lot of closed space. But then also when you have like the less dense levels, you can get some interesting, just some interesting connections from the tunneler here. And then what I also like to do is, it's kind of cool. There we go. Yeah, this is nice, right? So if you're, let's say you're exploring the dungeon, right? Let's follow the path here. Make sure this connects in an interesting way. So let's say you start here, right? and you as a game designer can choose where you want to start. You could go here. Already you have this interesting connection to this larger thing. And this is what I like, because even though we're using these very regular shaped rooms, we get this irregularity with the two layers connecting there. You could go there, you could go around. So here you would have a choice, right? You could have a kind of a shortcut that way or a hallway that way. So also we're adding some branching and looping, right? So it's not just a linear thing here. You could go out into the cave, go down, and then here, right, you get to this point and wow, you break out into this big open cave system, which I really like the idea of, right? That you're in these kind of tiny rooms and then boom, you get into this big space. And then here you get to these, you could break through into that area with the lake and connect to these other parts of the automata. So this to me is like a pretty good example of the kind of cool stuff that you can do with Strata. Now, obviously, there's a lot of ways you could use this, right? This is kind of maybe the most straightforward use to generate top-down roguelike levels. In another video, I will show you how to, there's a generator for 2D platformer levels, heavily inspired by some of the classics of the roguelike platforming genre like Spelunky. But you could also use this for puzzle games, other procedural art stuff, basically anything where a grid of 2D values is useful, you could use this, right? We could, if we wanted to, generate a 100 by 100 room template and save what's currently loaded in play mode into that and just save this whole level, right? So that's another way you could use it, is just generate stuff until you find something that you like and then save it. You could then edit that by hand if you wanted to and save it again, right? So a lot of different ways to use the tool set to have a blend of hand-authored content, procedural content, that hopefully is cool and useful for your game. So if you have questions or suggestions for how to use this, please leave a comment here on YouTube. If you thought the video was cool, drop a like and subscribe. That helps other people to discover the content on YouTube, which is super helpful. And yeah, thanks again for watching.